tell you a story.
Now, tonight's program will be about the upcoming world premiere of Doubt in Minneapolis, but by extension of the work that we'll see, we're also going to be focusing on the Minnesota Opera's extremely ambitious NewWorks initiative, of which Doubt is a major commission. Who had the idea to turn Doubt into an opera?
Well, initially it was my wife's idea, honestly. I'm always looking around for material to possible future operas, and she had seen the movie and suggested that this was something to look at really strongly. Had strongly suggested it, so I did, and then I approached John about it to see if he would be interested in writing the libretto, which he was, and then we approached Minnesota Opera, and they ended up being interested in commissioning it, and so we began to work on it.
So you approached Shanley in advance of an opera company actually making a commitment to it?
Yes, correct.
And Kevin, at what point did you come into the collaboration?
About a year and a half ago, I had heard about the project. I work with Minnesota a lot. I'm fortunate enough to work with Minnesota a lot. And I wanted the job desperately, of course. Once I heard they're making an opera of Doubt, I'm a huge fan of Doug's music. I've known Doug for a few years now, but we haven't worked together yet. And of course, I'm a huge fan of Shanley. So we actually had a lunch here in New York that was essentially a job interview. I mean, Doug knew me well enough to know that he was interested in me directing it, but I had to pass the Shanley test, as it were, which makes perfect sense. And we had a really amazing time. And in fact, it was funny. We finished the lunch, and they said, well, we'll talk about this, and we'll get back to you soon. We have to make a decision soon. I said, great. I'm just going to go to the bathroom. And I came back from the bathroom, and they said, well, you got the job.
That's true.
And John said, you have a sense of humor, so I think we'll get along just well. How many of you have seen the play or the movie, or both?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So most of you, that's good. But it's basically a battle of wills between Sister Aloysius and Father Flynn in 1964 in a Catholic Bronx school and church. And Sister Aloysius has begun to suspect Father Flynn of having inappropriate conduct with Donald, a young African-American student at the school, the only African-American student at the school. And so the story is essentially about their relationship and the battle of their wills. And as many of you remember for seeing the play and the movie, hopefully both, it's one of those pieces of work that you want to talk about for hours after seeing it. It doesn't take a decisive view or make a real decision about who did what and who was in the right and who was wrong. It is essentially a piece about doubt, as the title would suggest.
Did you want to discuss the pageant? Is that why I'm here? Or is this what you want to discuss? Well, I feel a little uncomfortable. Why do you think?
His well-being is my responsibility.
I find it liberating that we're finding a new way of telling the story. So we're not going and making another movie of it, for instance, or doing a different theatrical version of it. We're doing an opera version. So for me, it's exciting to work with the whole team and figure out how are we telling this story through music? What are the choices that we're making that we couldn't do in a play or a movie? That, you know, the opera is the best of all art forms when you get it right, because it can encompass all of that: good acting, good music, scenography, and I think that it has the potential to bring all the art forms together.
And what's the stage imagery that you're looking for?
So essentially we decided to set it in an omnipresent cathedral church space that then shifts throughout the evening. And then we can also divide the space in half. Very clear metaphor about the opposing viewpoints at work here. And we have these leaves that fall from the sky when we go outside. This is one of the first images that we decided on. Robert Brill is the set designer, wonderful set designer. And he's a voracious researcher, and he took photos of the school that John attended in the Bronx. And our very favorite image was this statue of the Virgin Mary. And she's ostensibly facing the street with her arms open to welcome everybody into the church. But if you're sitting in the garden, she has completely turned her back on you. And again, you can't make up an image like that for what's going on in this opera, that they're sitting on this bench with leaves around them. and Mary has turned her back on them in this moment of crisis, and their crisis of faith that's pervasive throughout the opera.
I want to believe you, but it's not me that has to be convinced.
I don't have to prove
She's
anything.
determined to protect
The music determines so much about pacing. A lot of my decisions as I've been going along is, well, how much time, how many musical beats should there be between this line and the next line? And so, I'm making my best guess at all these things, but things are things depend on lots of factors that you imagine as much of it in your head as you can. But so I think there's going to be certain times in which you don't do with Donizetti. You don't sort of say, well, let's cut out this bar. Or, even just while watching some things today, I was thinking, well, maybe there should be a little more time in between this and that.
And opera's very intense. We don't have 6 weeks of previews like a Broadway musical does. We have 5 or 6 performances and 3.5 weeks of rehearsal. So those changes have to happen very quickly and very instinctually. Yeah. So it's a very intense but very fun time. There's something in the zeitgeist at Minnesota Opera. There are other companies, there's a few other ones. Santa Fe Opera is a great example, San Francisco, that really enjoy doing new work. They love working with living composers and librettists, and that starts at the top. Kevin Newbury, the president and CEO of Minnesota Opera, is here tonight as well. And it trickles all the way down to every member of the company, and of course to the audiences as well. I'm working on Anna Bolena in Minnesota right now, as you said, and everyone's really excited about Anna Bolena. It's a wonderful production, but people can't stop talking about doubt. From the press office to the ticket office, everybody wants to talk about what's it going to look like, what does it sound like, everyone's asking questions, nuns just bought tickets, just everything you can think of. And so that just infiltrates everything, and the support is also there. The opera really knows how to offer workshops and give the composer, librettist, and director what we need to develop the piece over the course of a couple of years.
I think Father Flynn gave Donald that wine. Has Donald been acting strangely? He's been himself. Look, sister.